Trevor Lawallen.
How you doing, man?
What is happening?
A lot, man. Doing good though.
Are you doing good? Okay,
Oh
that's
yeah.
that's good. I find it, like when I listen back to my podcast, I find that all the beginnings are super awkward, but I love it.
Beginnings and endings, right? You always it's hard to like, okay, how do we say goodbye in a natural way? It's like
Yeah, it's
both
like an
beginning
awkward
and
high
ending.
five. It's like hand. Are you from down, from up? Like what? How do you roll? It's really tough here in Indonesia. By the way, you never know where they're gonna come from, so
Hmm.
it's 95% awkward here. Anyway, man, like I've thought of something today, and I just wanna open this podcast maybe with like gratitude and ask you like, what are you grateful for right now?
Ooh, I wasn't expecting that question. Dude, I'm grateful, dude. Okay, I could go like everything in my life, which is kind of a cop out, but like my family is especially lately has just been amazing. The team that I work with, I know like when I started my company, like a lot of the team basically took a risk working with me, and they've been just amazing. I'm so grateful for them. I mean, like it's just everything. Like I don't have anybody or anything around that I'm not grateful about. I guess like I'm grateful for I know like little things too, like my next door neighbor is like helping me like do workouts in his like in his like garage gym, and I'm like so grateful. Like it's just there's so many things to be grateful about. So it's hard to be like, what am I grateful? It's all the stuff, man. I'm
Mm.
yeah.
Wow. Shout outs to good neighbors.
Yeah.
Man, but okay. So let's now that we've found out what Trevor's grateful for, let's take it back. Like how did it all start for you? Like how did music start for you? How did you develop to be where you are today, as a label owner and as somebody who's and also deep in the business side of
Mhm.
music? How did all start for you? Take us way back.
Yeah, yeah. Way back into time.
A
So right out of high school, and maybe even a little bit in high school, I was doing some library stuff. My stepfather was doing music for a library, and I was really interested in it. So I got like a hand me down laptop with at the time I believe it was Logic 5
Whoa,
by eMagic at the time. Yeah,
whoa.
dude, that was when Logic was on the PC too. Yeah, so maybe 6, I don't know. That was when Logic was a grand, and then for all the Logic nerds out there, Space Designer by itself was a $500 product. And now everything's 200 bucks. Anyway, I started there, and just was really interested in making music because I grew up and my favorite thing in movies was the music. I like they're just music that would just hit, and you would just sit there and go, man, like the music created the emotion I'm feeling right now in this scene. Just as much as the actors, and maybe sometimes even better than the actors, right?
Mhm.
And I always enjoyed that. And so like I had like my popular music enjoyment, and then my like media music or movie music enjoyment, and those kind of were always in my like bouncing around in my headphones when I was younger. And then I started making music, and then I started in TV and film pretty early because I started trying to do the sell music to rappers and artists and stuff, and I hated it. I hated the game. I hated the begging kind of aspect of it. Begging is probably the wrong term, but the kind of like, let me like please buy a beat from me for $30 or whatever. I didn't like it. Especially at that time there wasn't like beat stars and stuff, right? It
Mm,
was so it was like Facebook and MySpace.
mm,
So I got in TV and film thing, and I just hit that, and I did that for a while as a composer. Got a job at a library being the engineer, where I was mixing all their stuff because I was really into engineering. I was like really like my composing was pretty good, but my like I could make things sound really good. That was like my kind of the thing I was really good at. So I got a gig as an engineer for a library and basically just mixed everything that came through the door. nonstop. And I did that for a long time. And then I was, as well as working as a music director for a like a company that represents libraries. And so then I would basically, every album that would come in, I'd listen to it, I'd make playlists, I'd send it off to the clients that they had, and that kind of stuff, all while trying to maintain myself as a composer. But those things ended up kind of taking precedence. So like the composer side kind of fell by the wayside while I was engineering and being a music director.
So you were
All
going
while
into an office? Like you were going into how was that? How did that go?
no, it was all internet. Even back then, I mean, it wasn't a crazy long time ago, but even back then, everything was over the internet, and that was another kind of thing I was pretty good at was, um, and I still am, was kind of creating an online like office slash work structure, which
Mm,
you've seen kind of how I do that now. Um, and so I was doing that back then, where for this company, they had like the composers and all that stuff, all on the internet, all the vocalists, all that kind of stuff. So I was doing that for a long time. It was really like slowly just kind of not feeling it. It's kind of like, I'm just mixing everything. I'm just listening to other people's music. And then I started getting into entrepreneurship in general, like in my free time, like doing like listening to the Gary V stuff, like reading the books, that kind of stuff. And I was like, maybe I'll just do this myself. Like, I think I can just like start my own.
mm,
Um, because the whole thing interests me, and I don't want to sit here and do, like, I enjoyed the work, I enjoy mixing, and I enjoyed being a music director, which in TV and film is basically just the guy who gets the brief, collects the music together, and then sends it to the client. So um like an advertising, like a Pepsi commercial is like, we need music like this, and then I go, okay, I go through everything, put together a playlist, and send it to you. I did that for a while, and I like doing it. But I learned all the insides of the industry as well, basically on those three fronts: composer, engineer, part of the business. So then I was like, all right, I'm gonna start my own. So I left the company that I was working for and went to a lot of the friends I made along the way. It was basically like, all right, you guys are better than composers. You guys are better composers than I am at this point. But I'm pretty good on the business side. I know how this all works. I'm gonna start the company and let's hit the ground running. And that's how my company Get It Done Music was started. Uh, a little under 4 years now. Yeah, a little under 4 years ago. And ever since, I mean, we've been landing, movie, TV show placements. We landed a catalog deal with BMG, so we have our full catalog with BMG, along with us basically providing music for like four, like consistently providing music for other like four other libraries as well.
mm,
So that's the nutshell version of my story.
mm. Yeah, man. Wow. I didn't know a lot of that. So I mean, from yeah, composing to engineering to business, all from high school. It's so there's a few things that I kind of hear from this, and it's kind of, and I'll just talk from my perspective and from my journey because that's what I know, right? Like a- as someone who is a musician, I've always loved business side. I loved Gary Vee at a certain point, and Cardone's and Tony Robbins, all
Hmm.
these people who like are you see them like they're really good at the business side. They're also connected to the mental side sometimes. Like there's a lot to it, but like from learning about it to acting on it, there are two things, and I feel like along your journey you've been acting a lot, which also justifies the name of your company, just as a side note, So, how do you think that has played a role in your growth until now?
Um, I realized pretty early on. So working with musicians, I realized the people who win aren't the best musicians. They're the people who get it done. Whatever
Mm,
it is, they're the ones who get it done. That's all you got to do. All you have to do is do what, like, do the thing, do the project, do the gig, do the music, do the whatever. Whatever it is it's asked of you, you just need to get that done, and then you will succeed. I've watched as many people way better than like insanely talented people just get nowhere
Mm,
because they were flaky, or they just didn't really put in the time and effort to do like the either the business side or the communication side or the networking side, right? Like that whole other part of the industry. They could sit at home and make some of the best things you've ever heard in your entire life, but they couldn't turn it into anything. And I realized that right away and was like, that's what'll set me apart. And what I'm good at is to make sure that I'm that guy. And that's kind of how the name came about, but that's also kind of been the mantra, like in general, for me. And so, yeah, that's super, super important. Like for the people watching, I know, like I know for a good year, I was obsessed with tutorials, getting better, trying to be the best. And I'm not saying don't do those things. Like always getting better is great. But so many people forget that like you just have to do the thing, like get it. I keep saying to
mm.
get it done, but you have to actually like send out the email, right? Like send out the email, go to the event, like take some pictures of yourself that are a little professional, like clean up your website a little bit. Like you just do all the things on the other side of the music, and you're going to be in the top 10% easy. So, yeah.
100%, man. Like I, yeah, and I sin. I'm telling you, like I'm sinning as a person who people who know me know I'm like the one who gets it done, but to me I'm so hard on myself at times where I'm like I feel like I don't get enough done at times where it's like I feel like it's the imposter syndrome meeting entitlement as a musician, and I feel like that's the thing that gets a lot of really good musicians is this sort of entitlement where like either not a talk to my agent type because that doesn't really exist anymore, but like just being feeling that something is under me, and I feel like you don't have that, you know what I mean? Like you have to there almost has to be a constant thirst. And even when we email each other, sometimes you email me at like your 2 a.m. and I'm like, this dude's crazy, you know and so I'm
Well, right now it's 1:30 for me.
yeah, there you go. There. Okay, this is. I mean, we're getting it done. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
um, I want to ask you, what do you feel like you've named a few things, and we've talked about having a good like portfolio page. I've talked about it, and I talked to it with people who come to me for mentorship because I think it's really important, like the one pager that really shows your
Hmm.
milestones. What are things you see composers not getting done enough of?
um, doing it themselves. I cold like okay. There's a bunch of little ones, or there's a bunch, but I'll kind of focus on a couple that
Yeah.
I uniquely think are really important that composers either just don't think of, or just don't think are a good idea. But like cold emails, for example, if you're trying to get with a label to work with their artists, or a library, or anything, an advertising agency, like just email them. Like I had a talk a while ago, and I showed people basically like how to find people's emails, and not in like a mischievous way or anything like that, just like normal email, like internet scrubbing stuff, right? And find their emails, and write a personal email, and make sure your presentation is good. I mean, we do this to go get a job, right? You don't
Hmm.
you go to like like when we're younger, we're taught to like dress nice, go into the grocery store and hand over the resume and tell them you want the job, and check in 3 days later. You just do that on the internet with emails,
Hmm.
and your presentation has to be good, and study a little bit of copywriting so that your email doesn't look dumb and blocky, right? Like, and just do a little bit of that. And that's the entrepreneurial side, right? That's the send out 100 emails, you'll probably get one back that's useful, right?
Yeah.
And if you get fast enough, you can send 100 emails in a week without really spending a lot of time on it.
Hmm.
So like that's one. And then just another thing that people don't do, is, and I use this word loosely, which is copy people, but I'm not going to say copy. I'm going to say uh, learn from people, right? So go to people's websites or their Instagram or their Twitter or whatever their medium is, right? That you're trying to do, and learn from them. Learn why they look professional and you don't,
Mm,
and do that
mm,
kind of stuff, right? Because I like like why does your website look messy? And then you go to another website and it's like clean. Like, what are the reasons for that? Like all that kind of stuff. I don't see a lot of people doing that. Like, like it's the presentation is very lacking. I've seen people send me emails that look like paragraphs that I'm never going to read because they're just
mm,
clumped together, right? I've seen social media accounts that just post like low quality mono versions of their beat. That's a
mm.
screen recording of them playing the MP3 on their phone, right? Like, and it's not that hard nowadays to create a little post with some software that's free or like $5 a month. Like, so all that kind of stuff. I think that little extra is not many people are doing, and it shows. So yeah,
Man, I hear you, and I feel this so strongly in me because I mean I've you're talking to my journey because at the beginning of my journey I was just like butting heads with um, anything. You know what I mean? Like I guess I was pretty good at music, but I was butting heads with everything, just trying to go through anything and everything by myself without going and seeking for mentorship and seeking for just like looking for that next step for myself. um yeah, and for me, you know what, like to what you're speaking, once that landing page became crispy and became good enough for people to just like see 1 2 3 what I'm about without even playing my music, they can know that I have my stuff in line. And then we can
yeah,
like and then I feel like, and tell me from your angle, I feel like once you got that in line, then you're 50%, like the door is already, your foot is in the door. Now it's just your music needs to do the talking. But it does need to be good, the music.
yeah. And nowadays, like good music's a dime a dozen. Like
Mm,
there is so much good music out there, and that's awesome.
mm,
But that also like I receive so much music that my filter system isn't really the music. The music is the last thing I look at.
mm,
My filter system is their presentation, and it just it and that's our filter system in life. A lot of times, like we have like knee-jerk judgments off of first impressions, right? That's why every entrepreneurial business success book, everything that tells you how to do things in life, one of the first things is first impressions matter, right?
mm,
And that's that, like, and it's clear. I go through my emails, I go through my DMs on Instagram, and that first impression of just organization, cleanliness. I'm clearly can easily read this email. It's not like a synopsis of your entire life that I have to try and read through. Right. Right. And all that stuff, like, um it's um you're laughing because I know you think you thought
Man,
of an
Joy, and before I tell you about my trauma in, in high school.
oh no, because there's a lot of it, dude. Like the emails that tell me about their like musical journey. Like, I was a kid and I grew up with a guitar and a dream, and it's like, yeah. Like, no, but so you have me
Oh,
at
I'm
the
literally
giggles now.
tearing up here.
so
Okay.
so that first impression is such a big deal, and the cool thing is nowadays that first impression is so much easier. You've got like just cool tech and learning resources. I mean, like, learning just the basics. Don't go down rabbit holes. Just learn the basics of like basic email writing, basic like organization of like text, right? Like I
Mm,
mean, even this, right? So if I'm a pair, here's a little nugget here. So because I do it, if I write a paragraph for an email, I'm just going to write it, just brainstorm. I'm not going to organize it, whatever. I'm just right, and it's a little paragraph. It's ugly. Things are spelled wrong. Whatever. Right. I copy it, I paste it into ChatGPT, and I say, make this a better readable email, and give me three options. And then ChatGPT will give me three different ways this email could be written, and it's so much better than anything I would ever do. Grab it, paste it into the email, and now I have a much better written, organized email than I did 10 seconds ago. you know,
100%.
and it's so easy now. Same with Photoshop. I'm before you and I got online, I was on Midjourney making cover art and just typing in prompt and popping out, cover art pictures for stuff.
That's
It's so
amazing.
easy.
Yeah.
It's so easy. So yeah, yeah. So I forgot the original deal, but yeah, that was my answer to whatever it was you
Nah,
asked me a
you're
minute ago.
you're killing it. I mean, ChatGPT is definitely like, as somebody whose English, like, my English is good, but it's not my first language. So for me, writing, I always bring it through some sort, through like some vessel, like
Hmm.
it either like a copywriter friend of mine, or like just a Chat GPT friend of mine, or something like that, because
Yep.
I just want to know that it's presentable and it's good, and the tools that are accessible are amazing, which kind of, what, like, it brings me to all this conversation of the big conversation of AI, and what is
Hmm.
happening on that front, and where you think that GID is going because of that, and in general, like, where you see things going right now with all that's happening, with it's a very wide question. You can basically touch on whatever you want, but like, from beginning with the strikes to AI to all these things, all these curveballs that are coming at the same time, uh in the music industry, and where you see that evolving.
Yeah. There's like three prongs there. So the term AI, I'm having a hard time taking serious because we're just talking about tech that's advancing how we would expect. I
Mm,
mean, we've all have Google. We've watched Google evolve, right? We all have Siri. Or the Cortana is the Google one, or whatever that is, right? We all have those things, and we've watched them get better and better over time. Uh, this AI kind of thing is just that continuing. So I think that the phrasing is kind of weird. Um, but if we didn't call it AI, I think we'd all just be like, "Man, tech is getting crazy right now. This is
mm,
cool." You know, like I really do feel like everybody's kind of spooking themselves a little bit with the AI phrase. Um,
mm,
I know it's a way to describe kind of algorithmic, like kind of like flipping, where it's taking what you input, flipping it back around, and like and whatever. Like it's technical mumbo jumbo, but I know there's like a reason why they call it artificial intelligence or whatever. But ultimately, I just see it as tech just evolving like it's been my entire life, right? So,
mm,
which I think is great and cool. Just like how the internet and Napster and all that stuff disrupted things. Ultimately, I think that stuff was for the better, for all of us. And I think that that's just going to be the case here. And so we're going to, whether it's making music with AI or writing emails with AI
right.
or whatever, right? Like I think it's just going to make what we do better, because it's just going to fix like the little things, like um and we've had a lot of it for a while. It's weird because I saw this like product, I won't name it, but this product that claimed to be AI drums, and all it was is what Logic implemented 6 years ago. So like I don't know if you use Logic, but Logic has a thing called Drummer, which is basically like these three AI drum characters. There's like a singer-songwriter drummer, a rock drummer, a hip hop drummer, right? And so there are these AIs that listen to your track and create a drum track around it, uh, automatically. It creates the verse and the chorus and the bridge and all that stuff.
Mm,
And that's been in Logic for 6 years now, 5 years,
mm,
6 years now, right? And same with some like algorithmic learning EQ, like match EQ in Logic, right? So a lot of this stuff has been around and has just gotten better. And in short, I'm not really like freaking out about AI or anything like that on the music creation side. I think it's all just going to be really cool. Now on the business, company, movie strikes, all that kind of stuff. That's going to be interesting, um, because the example I like to use right now, because if you try to use an AI music generator, it sucks. All of them suck. They'll use like their best example ever on the website on the front page, and you're like, "Whoa, that's not too bad." But then when you dive in to try and use it, it just sucks.
Mm,
The only thing that has been pretty good though is Splice. And that's because Splice is just is just doing what producers do in a lot of the time, taking loops and creating a track out of them.
mm,
And that's actually very interesting of a concept that I think will grow the more AI learns about audio that's generated by humans. That I think is going to be very interesting in the long
mm.
run. Um, so yeah, yeah, man.
Yeah, there's it's yeah, I feel like it's definitely it's sort of it's one of these things where I don't feel like people should be terrified from as much as they should just look out for, you know, like it's like it makes sense that when you'll be like tunnel vision on something, you won't see things on the side. It's like, you know, in fighting and in Formula 1, they do a lot of practice of peripheral. So like a lot of people, when they do this, they don't see their hands for a second, but then they realize that they do, right?
Hmm.
um if you put your hands like this, yeah, like next to your ears. It's also in the army. They do this kind of, basically, if you really calm your eyesight, you can take your hands way back and still see them,
Hmm.
is what I'm saying. And then your
Okay.
peripheral can grow and you can see what's in your peripheral, and you don't have to look anywhere in order to see what's in your space. And basically it's I feel like it's a very useful skill to have in general in life, as as in an entrepreneur, as a musician, as a somebody who has a library, especially because I'm talking to a lot of libraries these days, and uh, some of them don't give me the conviction that they are having that peripheral vision. And that is something I'm definitely keeping an eye from, and I can say I'm borderline afraid of. Like it's just something that's in my awareness all the time. Like, are these people looking towards the future? Because, you know, like the tower records and all these people are just gonna vanish. Like, people are gonna weed out. It is gonna weed out some people. Who do you feel like it would weed out first? This the
Yeah.
growth that is happening now, I mean.
Yeah, it's gonna weed out well, okay, so one of the kind of dirty little secrets in music production for a while, especially in library, is the loop producers. Um, for a long time before Splice,
Mm,
there was kind of the like royalty free world that was somewhat of a secret. Not crazy like a secret, but a lot of people didn't really know there was like loop websites. And
mm,
so some guys would go to the loop websites, grab everything, chop them all up, and make music out of them, and then put them up on a library. And that was like a way to be super productive, right? Is you could do that, pump out like 10 tracks in a week, easy, maybe
mm,
more, right?
mm,
And that was happening for a lot of libraries, like libraries that don't exist anymore for certain for those kinds of reasons,
mm,
right? So and I'm talking like 10 years ago, and so that was a really big kind of thing that continues to this day.
mm,
And and I think I've mentioned to you this before. At least you've seen kind of some of my comments on this, but we're seeing tracks being removed because there are the same loops in tracks all over library. You'll hear the same trumpet loop in three songs on three different libraries in three different areas, right? Like one will be on Universal,
mm,
one will be on BMG,
yeah.
right? And so then instead of dealing like legally they can technically do that because it's all royalty free and you've paid your service and yada yada yada, you've bought the lab, like legally you could do it, but everybody who's paying you to make music is getting annoyed, right?
Mm,
And so what I'm seeing is, one, a bunch of tracks are getting taken down because they're discovering these loops, and the software to find these loops is starting to pop up. Software that'll go, is there a splice loop in this song? And then
wow.
it'll listen and it'll say, we think so, or yes or no or whatever, right? That's just starting to exist. And when that hits, there's gonna be a lot of producers out of a job. So that's not really the AI thing. That's more just that. But even if that none of that existed, the AI part, like I mentioned earlier, you can go to Splice's website right now, click the random button, and it auto generates you a song. And I would say about 80% of the time, the song is all right, and then you just start from that and make a song in an hour, because you just hit refresh, refresh, refresh till you find something that's kind of cool, grab all those loops, start making your track, right? Why wouldn't a why wouldn't a TV network just hire one guy to do that instead of paying you and all the different libraries a bunch of blanket licenses? Now, movies, primetime shows, things that need vocals, all of these kind of bigger, advertising agencies, they want other stuff. They don't want the loop stuff. But why wouldn't the MLB or HGTV or ESPN or the Kardashians just have a guy auto generate music all day and pick the best out of the auto generated music to play in the background? I think that's where it's going to get disrupted first,
Mm,
is the kind of background sports or reality or whatever tracks that are just kind of playing in the background and most people don't notice them. Or if you do, you kind of are like, oh, it's kind of a cool little beat while these characters are doing whatever they're doing.
yeah.
Um, I think that's probably going to all get wiped out.
Mm. Big, big stuff. I have my pen and paper, and I'm gonna re-listen to this and write this down because this is important, super important. Phew. What do you think about the game industry? Is that something you're interested in at all in GID?
Yeah, yeah. So before GID, I've been building GID in strides. I learned if you try to do everything at once, you're just going to get overwhelmed. So, so I have like a list of, like, the first was the catalog, and we're starting to get into the next stage, and then gaming is in there as well. And so, but when I was working for the other companies before, we had done a couple video games, and games are fun. If you're working on kind of a bigger one that needs like music that kind of molds, like I worked on a video game where it was a racing game. And you know how racing games, like most of them nowadays, if you're in last place, the music is different than when you're in first place. And it changes as you get progress into like your place, right? So that means that the game has stems that it
Mm,
reacts to, right? Or at least it has versions that it'll blend, like kind of weave in and out of. But nowadays, like you can you can almost blend with a video game, because like video games, because tech is growing, video games can be really big, right? Like I just downloaded like the new Resident Evil that I need to play at some point, and it was like 90 gigs or something like that, right? So like, and that's fine nowadays because it took like 3 hours, right? Like
yeah.
my PlayStation has tons of space still. So that means that like there's a lot of room to play with for stuff. And so you could have a video game that has just this crazy interactive. See, now I'm kind of giving away my plan, but whatever. Uh, you could come to these companies and with this idea of like, we're going to have interactive music for your video game, almost like a choose your own adventure, but like your music is that, where two people's experiences aren't the same in a video game because the AI inside the video game is taking all the music assets that you have and generating things live while you're playing the game. And that's
Mm,
not crazy tech. It's kind of already exists. So it's just, a little bit advanced of what already exists, like give or take. But yeah, I like games I think are going to be really fun because of stuff like AI and all that kind of stuff. And they have gaming has, for one, gaming has the most money, so they can do it. Video games make more money than movies and music combined. So they have the money to like try, right? Try this
Mm,
kind of stuff.
mhm,
And two, they have the means, right? Like you can't really do that with a movie or a TV show, right? But you could do some of that cool kind of modular custom stuff with video games. So I think video games is going to be a really cool that not to get too winded with this, but indie games are growing in popularity like crazy. Like there are indie games that do way better than like main titles from like Activision, you know?
mm,
So like there's such a big cool market for video games. I think it's a cool place to have fun, and also there's a lot of money in it too.
mm. Okay, so quick turn. It seems from what you're speaking to, all this in all this time that we've been speaking until now, it seems like you you preach focus, and let's say if you were a composer in 2023, what would you what would be the first, let's say, five things you would focus on in order to be a successful composer nowadays for sync?
For sync, okay, I was gonna ask what
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
goal
yeah,
is, right? Yeah,
yeah,
okay, so for
yeah.
sync, um, 5 things, I'm gonna treat it like a basketball so I grew up playing basketball, so I'm gonna treat it kinda like a basketball thing, which is like, you gotta practice you gotta get your 5 fundamentals, like in basketball, depending on your position are your 5 fundamentals, right? If you're the center, you really gotta work on your footwork down low. If you're the shooting guard or the I'm sorry, the point guard, you gotta really, like, have court awareness and who's open, who's not, like, all that fun stuff. So, which player in the game do you wanna be? And then start there, and then have your plan to become that player. And this kind of sound like somewhat of a cop out because I'm not going to give you 5 things necessarily. But what I'm going to tell you to do is, and this has been my advice, not just in music but in anything, because it's worked so true for me. Find the person who is where you want to be and copy them. So if there's a guy who has the sync career that you want, like all the things, he's doing video games, he's doing this, or maybe he's not doing video games because you're not interested in video games, but he's doing like hip hop TV shows or whatever. Like he has the career you want. Ask him what he did and do
Mm,
that. Ask him how he got there and do that. And do it. Like don't ask and be like, okay, I'm going to do that, but do it my way. No, he did it, and he's proof that it works. Do what they did, and then you'll get there. And that's usually my advice to people, like not just in music but in general, because I think that it's hard to give people a bullet point or like do these 5 things, like because it doesn't apply. Like, and I know that's the question you asked me, and I'm kind of like throwing it
yeah,
out,
yeah, yeah.
but it doesn't apply to be able. It doesn't work for me to give you 5 things and be like, do these 5 things and you got it, because everybody's different. Everybody's got different goals, and you got to kind of know yourself enough, because if you ask that guy, what did you do to get there, and they tell you like a handful of things, and you're just like, I'm not going to do those things. I'm not cut out for that stuff. Then you got to refocus and refigure out a different guy and figure out what they did, right? And so that would be my advice, is to find the blueprint from the guy who did what you want to do, and then
Mm.
follow that blueprint.
I love it. It doesn't make for a good YouTube video.
5 things,
Five things,
right?
maybe. the most the most awkward YouTube video. It would be like 1.5 minutes. But yeah, man, I feel like that's the thing, and to speak about influencers, and that's where I feel like I'm kind of I would say like that's what I'm grappling with. Like there's no one way to go about this, but there are a few really um a few ways that have succeeded for a lot of people that you can do, and here you
Hmm.
go. And they're not sexy. Like copying someone is not always sexy. And I feel like the ability to be humble in these situations, in these scenarios, is the number one thing. I've had Rick Rubin's engineer a few weeks
I
back,
saw that.
and man, he's the amount of humble that comes out of this dude. The dude is asking me questions even about what I do. You know, like it's just the amount of curiosity, an
Mhm.
amount of knowledge these people are seeking is just like second to none. And you too, I can say that, you know, like you are always pivoting. I can feel it from every interaction I have with you. It's like there's always a push to something. And also, like I was speaking to D, which was also on the podcast, and he was
Yep.
just saying, man, like I'm telling you, like we were speaking offline, and he was just like a testament to it because he knows you for longer. And it's just, you know, I feel like what you are saying is basically choose your battles and then move forward. So it's huge. It's simple and it's huge, and that's what I want to stress to my listeners. You know, there's no like one way, because that's exactly my imposter syndrome that comes with like courses and, you know, things that are online, and this is how you do it, and this is the blueprint for how to succeed and sync or whatnot. I'm not shitting on everyone. That's how I started. Um and with that being said, the no thousand hour course is going to get you there if you're not willing to do certain steps. So I think that people who are listening need to go back like 10 minutes, rewind this, listen again, get me some more Spotify listens, and and recreate that for themselves, because this is especially in this day and age, too many people are looking for answers right away. They're looking for quick fixes, which is, it's like, it's not like you got to know your shit. You had to know your business to start GID. There are things that are fundamentals that people need to kind of have for themselves. Man, to close this, what is something you are excited about currently?
Currently excited about. um Honestly, like, so we were talking earlier about I actually like, yeah, this is the answer. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. I'm talking to myself. So um yeah, Trevor, say that to him.
Oh my gosh.
No.
It is 2 a.m.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's
Well, I'm always up this late though anyway, so but no, I lost it. Oh, no, no. Okay, so earlier we were talking about like the industry and how it's changing, and people are going to be left behind, and certain things are going to like get wrecked by AI or whatever, you know.
mm, mm,
That excites me, and I don't, not in the way of like, oh yeah, people are going to have a hard time, cuz that sucks, right? Like there's going to be people who lived in, like, I know a lot of these people who lived in the, like, they made a living off of like background music for football, basketball, baseball games, right?
yeah.
And there's I'm pretty sure I see a world where that isn't a thing anymore, because AI will kind of eat that up, right? For the most part, you know. And that sucks. But that does, like, what comes out of that kind of stuff is growth, and like a rising of the floor, right? And so when it comes to like libraries, like, and now I'm going to kind of throw a little shade on the library industry a little bit, but oh well. Libraries, I feel like, haven't changed for a long time, and there are a lot of libraries that, like, like, I don't know what they're doing. It's just like hip hop volume 9, hip hop volume 10, you know, like generic. Like, I can type a prompt into chat gpt and put together like crazy cover art, and some of these libraries are not even doing that, you know. And I'm not trying to be mean, but that's just to me, what's exciting is that kind of, that floor goes away, and then the rest of the industry has this new floor that's way up here, right? And then like the quality starts here and then goes up from there. And that is somebody who likes to be kind of pressured and squeezed and pushed, like uh like I'm the type that if like if I made like $1 million tomorrow, I would chill, and that's not a good thing. You know,
Mm,
I know that about myself. I know that if I made a million, $2 million tomorrow, I'd be like, you know what, I'm going to slow things down a little bit. I'm going to
mm,
relax, and that's not a good thing in a lot of ways. It's not a good thing for productivity, for your company, like all that kind of stuff, right? I know that about myself, and so when I see that the industry is about to like pressure me, I'm like, yes, because I'm gonna like dive into the pressure to to come out above that baseline. And so I'm excited about the fact that AI and the film and TV industry, I think, is starting to really change. AI is changing things. Music in general, like, I mean, we're on a podcast about sync. There's 101 sync Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter accounts at this point, teaching everybody how to do this. So we're now flooding this entire industry. Like when I started, nobody knew about it, right? Nobody knew about sync. Nobody knew how to even get into it. Now everybody knows. There's every YouTuber and Instagram dude on the planet is telling you how to get into sync, which is a little bit stressful because the competition goes up. But I think that that's great because the quality just keeps going up. So anyway, so my answer in short is the industry is changing. It's getting harder, and that's super exciting because
mm.
I feel confident in myself and my team and my company and everything that that's just going to make us really dope.
Yeah, 100% with that. And I mean, I feel like it's one of these things. It reminds me what you were saying. It's the New York analogy where New York is like it either spits you whole or it takes you in. It's like one of the two.
Hmm.
It doesn't go in between. And I feel like it's beginning to be like that where it's just sync is gonna be for a specific kind of person, like for specific people who actually want to do this right. And like there are companies that have been doing it right for a while. And to your point about the $1 million thing, I slightly disagree, but I feel like once you know where you're gonna put these $1 million, you're ready for these $1 million, and then you won't lay on your sword like like you were speaking. Because if I got $1 million tomorrow, bro, like I mean, I wouldn't know what to do with them, so I would need to fucking rest. That's the reality. I'll go to a financial advisor because I wouldn't know what to do with $1 million tomorrow. I'm being completely honest and true here. There's zero masks here. So I mean, I feel like just like they say, like luck equals opportunity plus preparation. I feel like it's the same with with these kinds of amounts that come in, or intentionally come in. Whereas it's like if it was just lottery money, what happens to people who win. We all know what happens to people who win the lottery.
Yep.
So 100% I hear you about that. And you know what, I feel like I'm seconding that with saying that because it's it's just the world is just like that. I feel like human nature is like that. Like we are
Hmm.
either planning forward, or we are just sitting in our cave chilling. And $1 million is a good reason to sit in our cave and chill, right? Like
Yeah.
there's no reason to stress things. So anyway, man, this I want to keep the conversation at this, and keep listeners engaged for perhaps around two, because I am coming to your area. So we might have to circle back
Dude.
in
Yeah.
real life
And do it
and
in
do this.
person. Let's do
Yes,
it. Yeah.
sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. um and yeah, is there anything lastly you'd like to leave the listeners with?
I don't know. I said all of my like little advice nuggets or whatever. Like, not all of them. I'm sure I could think of others, but I don't know. Like, I think, what is the analysis paralysis? That's okay. So, I did this for a lot as a producer and as an entrepreneur, which is I did a lot of tutorials and learning. I learned too much. I think a lot of us in general are too learned, right? And we don't just go do. And so I learned way too much about making music, like on a technical level. This plugin does this compressor does this, and this EQ, it's different than this one because of this, and da da, like over it all day, every day.
Mm,
And then go and be like, all right, time to buy every tutorial on how to get into sync or how to get a record deal or how to, like, you kind of just, you're just learning too much. You don't need that much information. Like, just go do stuff. Go fail.
Yeah.
Like I we could do a whole podcast on the things I failed with GID, the money I've spent that just was a waste. Like I ran
Mhm.
like online competitions to try and get like artists and stuff, and it just went no. Like I did all kinds of random stuff that was just a failure. And I learned way more from that than trying to search the internet for the perfect YouTube tutorial video. So, analysis paralysis of like, I just need another video or another course or another, PDF somebody's selling me. Like, information is good. Really shrink it because everybody's doing too much of it, and just do stuff. Go do stuff, or as I would say, go get it done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what you leave him with, man. Trev, thanks so much for coming on, and we'll get back. We'll circle back for round two.
Hmm. Yeah, you're gonna be in my neck of the woods soon. So yeah, and in person is always way more fun.
Hey, all right.